Good morning,
Deb,
everybody.
everything okay on your end?
Yep, good morning, everybody. And we are now live, and I turn it over to Carly.
Thanks, Deb. Happy World Ocean Month and World Ocean Day, everyone. My name is Carly, and I'm pleased to bring the ocean to you on this special day. The ocean is half of the carbon sink for climate change, provides more than 1 billion people their only food sustenance, and is a huge source of biodiversity. Today, we celebrate the ocean and all that it gives, including the beauty and mystery of the deep sea. Join us as we live stream never seen footage of the Coral Sea Marine Park as part of our current Visioning the Coral Sea expedition. We have been here in Australia exploring the deeper canyons, reefs, and seamounts since January with outstanding findings. There have been over 30 new species discovered, as well as quite possibly the world's longest species, a 50-foot siphonophore. Today, we want to bring together a unique cohort of guests with Schmidt Ocean Institute, people that we have been lucky enough to work with in the past and celebrate the ocean together. As we share the deep and often unseen ocean to your living rooms and computer screens, we want to hear from a range of experts in how they're engaging and appreciating our living ocean. Today, we are joined in Hawaii by Mark Towell, 11th Hour Racing Team co-founder and CEO, the current Chief Scientist, Dr. Robin Beeman from James Cook University, past Chief Scientist, Dr. Ivana Sentinich, oceanographer in the Ocean Ecology Lab at USRA NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, Dr. Samantha Joy, a Regent professor and deep sea expert at the University of Georgia, previous Artists at Sea participants, Lily Simonson and Bailey Ferguson, Student Opportunities participant and National Geographic explorer, Antonella Willoughby, as well as our amazing Falkor crew, Captain Pete Reynolds, Falkor's lead marine technician, Paul Duncan, and second officer, Ty McManus. As you can see, it's going to be a packed discussion with lots to share. Let's dive right in, and let's start with Mark Towell. I'm pleased to be able to connect with Global Sailor Mark. It's wonderful to have you here with us today.
Hey, Carly, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, and happy World Oceans Day.
Yeah, it's great. It feels like you're just down the road. As a sailor, you spend a lot of time on the ocean. What about the ocean calls to you?
Well, for me, growing up here in Hawaii, I was very fortunate to have the ocean be a big part of my life from such a young age. And so as I was growing up, the ocean was really a place that I went to relax and play with my friends, and I felt very at peace and grounded, so to speak. And then as I've gotten older and had the opportunity to transition into a professional sailing career, the ocean has become much more than just a place of solitude for me. It's become, the place of my job. And the more time I spend on it, the more I realize how endangered it is. And so I feel this sense of responsibility to try to help take care of it.
And we know everything's connected, and you're spending a lot of time on the surface of the ocean doing what you do. How do you make those connections to the deeper ocean?
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept and a big challenge for us. As sailors, we spend a ton of time on the surface of the ocean, and I've now had the opportunity to sail around the world twice and have gotten to explore some of the far corners of it. But understanding what's beneath the ocean and what's happening, in some of the deeper depths, like we're seeing live right now, is a challenge. And I think, often we're disconnected from it. But just because that's the case doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand it. And so a few of the things that we're doing within our team are that we've actually made one of our campaign themes, what's below the surface is what connects us all. And we're trying to educate ourselves internally to understand what it is happening below the surface, and then trying to use our platform as a team to share some of that knowledge externally.
It's incredible. And aside from that, what kind of lessons have you taken from, being able to experience people and oceans all around the world through your sailing?
One takeaway for me is that while our planet is quite big, it actually is also very small. And, if we can sail across some of the world's largest oceans in our small little sailboats in just a few short weeks, the planet really isn't that big, and the oceans really aren't that large. And I also think that it takes a really strong emotional connection with something in order to have the passion to take care of it. And so, as a team, we feel really connected to the ocean, and we really feel that we need to be advocates of change. We've sailed through the Malacca Straits, which is one of the world's most populated and busiest shipping ports in the world, and felt like you could literally step off the boat onto some of the marine debris and walk to land. And in contrast, we've also forged some of the depths of, the mighty Southern Ocean, thousands of miles from land, and we found microplastic there as well. And some of the takeaways are that, the oceans really are fragile. And they really are in need of our help.
Well, it's great to have advocates like you. How has working with your title sponsor, 11th Hour Racing, changed your approach to running a professional sports team?
For me, it's a dream come true to have the opportunity to work with an organization whose values mirror yours is a real honor. And I'd say the biggest thing that we're really trying to implement and demonstrate is that sustainability is not a compromise. We are a professional sailing team, and we are trying to win an around the world race, but we're also trying to do that in a way that's very mindful of our impact and using the platform of our team to be advocates of change. So we're really looking to incorporate sustainability into everything that we do. And, we do that operationally. For example, we measure and track the impact and our footprint. We offset all of that at the end of our campaign. From a technical perspective, we're really trying to push the boundaries of boat building techniques, and we're exploring and researching alternative materials to carbon fiber and looking at ways to implement that. And we're also looking at biomimicry and trying to see what we can learn from the biodiversity in the ocean and how we can apply that to racing sailboats and other technology. We also think that through partnerships, we can be catalysts of change. And a good example of that is our clothing supplier in the last race, Musto. It's a great opportunity for us through partnership and what really are the sustainability related issues in their communities and what we can do as a team and through our platform to help amplify their message.
So it's really a systematic approach, not, just like with the ocean and with the earth and the science that we do, similar to what you're doing as well.
Exactly.
This is a really unique opportunity. I mean, we're, I think, one of the only live streams in town, and watching, real time ocean far away from where you are right now. How does this connect to you on World Ocean Day, and really what inspires you?
Well, I think it's just amazing to see how far technology can take us and what we can, learn in some of the remote corners of the world. I mean, here we are hundreds of meters below the surface, and, the Falkor and Schmidt Ocean Institute are helping us understand and learn about things and ocean awareness and these types of things have gone from just an environmental issue to become much more of a social and economic issue. I think generally we understand that more needs to be done. And I think this group's a perfect example of the fact that the best change comes from interdisciplinary groups. And so to have people coming from different perspectives and bringing different experience, for me, gives me a lot of hope.
Well, that's perfect, Mark. You set me up very nicely there for how we continue on. I really appreciate you being here today, and can't wait to watch you in the next ocean race. We're going to shift gears a little bit now. From Hawaii to southeastern United States and connect with Dr. Samantha Joy. Samantha, thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to the finding we had last year of that upside down lake might have been SOI's top 5 live streaming moments. I mean, really, your passion and knowledge about the deep sea is contagious, and we are just so delighted to have you here today.
Thanks, Carly, for having me. Happy World Ocean Day, everybody.
So during that expedition, the Microbial Mysteries, when you were on Falkor, the goal was to really understand hydrothermal vent ecosystems in the Gulf of California. Tell us a little bit more about these environments, what they're like, and how they differ to what we're seeing today here on the live stream.
So the Gulf of California is a really interesting environment for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that it's on an active fault system. So the San Andreas Fault sort of continues down and becomes what is the Gulf of California. So it's an active spreading center. It's an oxygen minimum zone. So there's low oxygen in the water. So there's 2 ways it's different from the site we're looking at today. It's deeper, much deeper, about 4 times deeper. And the oxygen concentrations are much lower by about a factor of 10 or so. And it's dark, obviously, so no light gets to the bottom. And one of the neatest facts about the Gulf of California is that because of this heat coming in from the ridge system beneath it, there's a lot of organic matter in the sediments, and you get modern day formation of oil. So all of the sediments, whether they're hot or cold or oily. So one of our big goals in this expedition was to assess microbial dynamics and animal dynamics at different habitats. So hydrothermally impacted and colder habitats, but all with high concentrations of carbon coming from the soil.
And a lot of times people are really fascinated about some of those bigger charismatic species that you see, like crabs and shrimp. But what is so important about those microbial communities that you're looking at?
So microorganisms form the base of the food web at hydrothermal vent ecosystems. All the large animals that you see, from Rictia to the crabs and clams, they wouldn't be there if it weren't for the microbes. So the microbes are capable of transforming chemical energy into utilizable biological energy. So they take the chemical energy from the venting fluids, like hydrogen sulfide, and that smell of rotten eggs. They take, to them, that's caviar. So they take that sulfide, they convert it into energy, and they use that to fix CO2 and build biomass. And that biomass feeds all the other animals at the higher levels of the food chain at the vent. So if it weren't for microbes, none of the other animals would exist. And the other amazing thing about the microbes of these systems is that the reactions that occur in these deep sea extreme environments are some of the most ancient, if not the most ancient, metabolisms that are known on Earth. So this is a place where you can actually potentially discover some microorganisms that are really at the root of the tree of life. So some of the earliest, most ancient organisms with some of the most novel and unexpected metabolisms around. So it's a great place to just sort of discover things that are new to microbiology.
Well, and it certainly wasn't just the microbes that were exciting on your expedition. We had lots to be excited about. So since leaving Falkor, what have you been able to gather from the data, and have you made any further discoveries?
So one of the things that we're finding is, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me, these upside down mirror lakes were phenomenal to see. But those rocks, they're alive. It's an ecosystem. It's not some, boring rock. When you look at it in a thin section or extract the DNA from the rocks, there's some really bizarre, strange microorganisms living in these rocks. And, we just started getting the molecular data in our hands. But there's no doubt that we're going to find new organisms that are, new to science, with probably some just crazy metabolisms. And some of the work we did with the tube worms, for example, a lot about how animals might, survive and even thrive in low oxygen oceans of the future.
I'm excited to hear more about that. What Mark had mentioned just now too, about being in different places and seeing, how fragile the ocean is with so much debris everywhere you go. I mean, I was shocked when some of our live streams from your expedition were showing Mylar balloons, discarded Christmas tree. What does that tell you about the status of our oceans when we're seeing that at thousands of meters depth?
So I've been working in the deep sea for 20 years, and it's really clear that, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, on a given dive, you see so much more garbage on the bottom. And, when you think about places on the planet that are untouched by human activity, you think about the North Pole and polar bears. Well, we know polar bears have PCBs in their fat, nasty chemicals accumulate in their fatty tissues. The bottom of the ocean is the other place that it ought to be pristine. It ought to be just spectacular and beautiful, but it isn't. It's been touched too. And, what I always think about when I see a Mylar balloon, it's like, what about all the microplastics that I can't see? And looking microscopically at some of the plastics in these samples, and there's debris and more debris and more debris. It's anywhere that we've worked where we didn't see just some very, very obvious signature of human impact. And whether it's a garbage bag or a truck tire or something, somebody's buckshot into a refrigerator and sunk it to the bottom of the ocean for some silly reason. But the Mylar balloons are the worst. I mean, my kids love balloons, but I've explained to them in gentle terms that I don't buy balloons anymore for birthday parties because, you know, it's really hard to dispose of them, and I'm just setting a bad example. So we've all got to realize that everything's connected, and all that debris goes somewhere, and we don't want it ending up in the bottom of the ocean.
Well, you make a good connection there in terms of educating the younger generation, your kids, students out there, and you've done a wonderful job of engaging with the public through your research and through unique ways. You recently had a wonderful video game, Beyond Blue, just get released. Can you quickly tell us a little bit about that and how you engage the public?
Sure. So Beyond Blue is a game produced by Eline Media. It actually, parts of it are out, but the game actually releases on Thursday. So keep your eyes out on Steam or Xbox. It's an amazing game. It's not just a game. It's an educational platform. It's sort of when I tell my kids about it, they're like, it sounds like Dora the Explorer. Well, it's Dora the Explorer with the tools and technology of people are just gonna, I hope it makes people fall in love with the deep ocean because it's a powerful story, and the visuals of the game are just phenomenal, as you probably know. It's just an incredible accomplishment for the Eline team to have been able to really hit all of their aspirational goals with, you know, the storyline is compelling, it's interesting, and the visuals are just mind-boggling.
Well, I can't wait to play, and hopefully I didn't drop any exclusive hints there about when it comes out, but we really appreciate you being here, Mandy. It's wonderful to talk to you.
Thanks so much.
And, you know, continuing on that note of engaging public, I want to bring into the conversation two of our previous Artists at Sea participants. We have with us Lily Simonson and Bailey Ferguson. I'm so happy you both can be here today. Both of you have very similar mediums and different styles in how you're looking at the art and the science. Lily, let's start with you. What really inspires your art and your method?
Well, I'm really inspired by subjects that change the way we understand the world. So the deep sea is like a perfect muse for that because we're always learning new things about it and discovering new phenomena. And I love the tradition of art and science coming together to share these discoveries. So I sort of see myself in this lineage with Audubon and Maria Marion. So I get to use my paintings to share these discoveries from the deep sea. And I love inviting viewers to sort of identify and travel through my paintings to these worlds that they might not otherwise experience.
Well, they certainly do. They're so vivid, and they just, you know, are beautiful and accurate. You really do feel like you're stepping into a hydrothermal vent. Bailey, with looking at the footage we're seeing now, some of this live stream here, what stands out to you? I mean, when you look at the ocean, how do you select what subjects you're going to paint, and how do you portray that?
Oh, thanks, Carly. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, I'm just totally mesmerized by the live dives with Schmidt Ocean Institute. Looking at them, they're so otherworldly. And what stands out to me is like the visual environment that it's almost like an illuminated vignette, you know, knowing that the ROV is in total darkness and how it's shining light onto what's living down at the sea floor. And then the big thing that stands out to me right now is just the colors and the textures and the depths, which are all big motivators in my work. And like right now, two colors that I'm really inspired by are phthalo blue and Prussian blue hue. And so these are colors that help me capture the ocean, which is my main subject matter.
That's amazing. I didn't, to be honest, know that those colors existed, and they sound very descriptive and lovely. And, you know, it's so nice to see both of you with some of the art behind you, because that's so indicative of some of the pieces that you did on Falkor. And both of you were able to create panels for ROV Sebastian. So your artwork is on our submersible, and that means the art is getting graced all over the world in many different ocean spaces. How does it feel to be part of something like that?
Well, it's incredible. You know, I like to joke that it's not common that an artist gets to put their art on a $4 million frame.
world. So it's a fun reversal. Like Bailey said, your work is visiting this other world. So that's super exciting. And then, yeah, just to be able to give something back to this community that has given me so much inspiration is a really cool sort of symbiosis.
And Lily, while we're chatting with you, you know, this symbiosis that reflects in your work, how did your time as a whole reflect your work? Like, what have you done since your time on Falkor, and how has that impacted you moving forward?
Well, Falkor I've had the good fortune to go on quite a few oceanographic expeditions, but Falkor was really special because there's such a great synergy between the crew and the ROV team and the scientists. And then as an artist at sea, I get to be part of this cohort of other artists at sea like Bailey. So my work feels like it's tied into this big group of people. And I had the opportunity to make a painting using the ROV Sebastian's manipulator arm. So that painting's here. And that was a totally different process for me because my style is like Renaissance painting technique. It's very, very old school. So to bring technology in that way actually really opened up my process and changed a lot of things for me in ways that are sort of immutable. But yeah, it was a really special and spectacular experience that I'm still making work inspired by that process and by the things I saw. So
I love that merging of, you know, the work that you do in the technology, and that's what happens. Like, you throw scientists and artists together, and we've seen incredible things. Bailey, I want to jump back to you for a second here. Where has your art taken you in terms of intersecting your work and science?
Yeah, so before coming on Falkor, my work was really in relation to near-shore ocean surface, like what I could directly access from land. So coming on the Falkor as an artist at sea, I was really interested in the opportunity of getting offshore, just away from land, and see how it might influence my work. But the big takeaway was going deep and investigating the seafloor. I mean, of course I knew that would happen, but it's really kind of taken over my big influence. So, and you know, introducing new interests to me, like seafloor mining and mapping. These are kind of things that I have on my mind right now. And you know, the other thing about the Falkor, just like Lily said, being in direct collaboration with scientists and crew and fellow artists. So it helped me become, you know, more comfortable in communicating about ocean science, which is important for an artist that paints about the ocean. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, that's really wonderful to hear. Bailey, what actionable activities would you recommend to people in terms of learning more about the ocean, even if they're not a scientist? I think sometimes it can be overwhelming to people who want to learn more but don't know where to start.
Yeah, that's, you know, I totally know how that feels. One thing I haven't mentioned is that I grew up in Nebraska, so a landlocked state, and like, you know, important things that we can do is just, well, get into the ocean is one thing. You know, if you can travel to the ocean and get in it and like create that connection, then you, like Mark said, like you want to protect it, you know, and I think that's so important. And then as far as, actionable activities also, I think getting engaged with organizations that are involved on a local and political level. And because I think that's really important right now. And, you know, one organization that I really like is Surfrider Foundation. I love that they're creating policy. And then, of course, I think that, you know, being involved in this like Schmidt Ocean Institute, how you're doing the live dives makes it so accessible to people. So one thing I wish that I could see underwater when I'm swimming and, you know, without a mask on. And so I love that I can come onto the ROV dives and you just see the most amazing things. So.
Excellent. Lily, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Bailey said. Those are all great organizations. And I also, wanted to add that of course, we're in the midst of a civil rights movement in our country right now, and a great sort of thinker that explores the intersection of ocean science and social justice is Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. So she's a great person to look at if you're interested in where those intersect. And like Bailey said, how no matter who you are, the ocean affects you, and you also affect the ocean.
That's so true. Thank you so much, Lily. And thank you to both of you for taking some time to talk a little bit about your art. And I love that we're able to see some of it behind you. If people want to see more of your work, they can go to the Schmidt Ocean Institute online gallery and see some of the artists' previous pieces, or to your own individual website. Lily Simonson, is it .org or .com?
.com.
.com, thank you. And BaileyFerguson.art, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Thanks.
excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I want to move our conversation along because we still have so many amazing people to talk to today. And we're going to go from the deep ocean, a little bit more shallow, talking with Dr. Ivana Sentinich, who sailed with Falkor in 2018. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's great to be here, and happy World Oceans Day.
Thanks, same to you. So I mentioned we were going shallower, and that's mostly because you use satellites in your work. And your expedition that you did back in 2018 was really focused on getting data to help improve the accuracy of those satellite reads and understanding sea surface ocean dynamics. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So first, this is a great talk, and every time I hear deep sea biologists or oceanographers talking, I'm like, maybe I messed up, but no. So in a sense, I study ocean, study surface of the ocean, and actually I use color. I'm not an artist, but what satellites can see from above on top of the atmosphere, they can see the color of the ocean. And the color of the ocean is driven by, water, but also different things that are in there. And it can be sediment, it can be mud, but it can be gigantic number of these amazing plant-like organisms that we call phytoplankton. And when you said that 50% of the carbon drawdown happens thanks to the ocean, big percentage of that is thanks to these algae that are similar to plants drawing down this carbon and eating it and feeding into the fishies and everything else. So pretty much all the ecosystems in the ocean, except for the hydrothermal vents, are living thanks to the phytoplankton that I study. And it's really cool because we can see them from the ocean, we can see them from the satellite, or we can see them under a microscope. So it's kind of like a cool conundrum. So that's what I do. And satellites are pretty cool. They're very important. They can cover the whole world's ocean if there's no clouds within 2 days. But ultimately, we need to go on vessels. And, we go on vessels, and sometimes they're as awesome as Falkor are, to collect the data. So we, do genetics, we do microscopy, we do a bunch of different measurements of color of the ocean. How does the light interact with these little things in the ocean? And then translate that in something that satellites are seeing. And that allows us to build algorithms. And it allows us to inform what are we going to be able to see with the future satellites. So that's kind of what I do. Develop lots of technology and, filter lots of water.
Well, I love this unintentional theme of color and looking at the ocean, and also technology. During your expedition, I remember in particular, you used some really cutting edge tools, really interesting. You had VR headsets where you were walking through plankton and doing some really interesting things. What developments have occurred since then?
So, we published a bunch of papers, but that's kind of not cool for people. But for example, so the VR technology, graduate student who worked in it, he published the papers, he got his master's, but just explain to people what happened. We had this, it's like a holographic camera. It's not like, people dancing on stage holographic, but it pretty much takes a 3D image of these teeny tiny creatures. There's 50 of them in width of your hair. So as it's traveling through the water from the surface down, it takes this holographic image. And in theory, the only way you can see holographic projection is in virtual reality. So what we did, the colleagues that were working with me, Melissa Mon from University of Rhode Island and her team, they brought virtual reality on the ship. And we were using supercomputers that Falkor has to process that in real time and actually pretty much put this VR and then, just pretty much repeat that dive with that holographic instrument and see everything in 3D. So pretty much you can walk through this phytoplankton and isolate one that you can see and you want to look at. But we also developed some other really cool technology. One of the instruments that was being developed and tested, and Falkor is now, commercially available and being used by the scientists around the world, not just for the surface ocean, but to measure coastal issues, flooding, and things like that, because it can follow different size particles, and that's really important. And bunch of different measurements that we have done are really made an important connection with the surface of the ocean and what's happening beneath. What is sinking down towards the deep ocean, the Falcor is so often studying. So this carbon transport, we're deploying some pumps, some cups that were kind of pretty much capturing these little phytoplankton dying and falling down, and also some zooplankton poop, because zooplankton eats phytoplankton and they poop, and that's important carbon export. And so all that is coming together now. There's really cool papers being published, and that's really important because what we see from the satellites, we see this color. But if we combine that with the stuff that we collect on the ship, such as Falcor, we can pretty much build models, and we can then predict what's happening with the carbon that is drawn down by this phytoplankton, and how is that behaving in the in oceans of today and then oceans of tomorrow.
Well, it's also really exciting. I mean, that data collection is helping to produce a new satellite, and I think that's a really exciting piece of it. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of my biggest projects that I work on most of my time is called PACE. That stands for Plankton PACE stands for Plankton Aerosol Cloud and Ocean Ecosystem, and without end. It's a big satellite that NASA's building that's going to change the view that we see ocean. So up to now, most of the satellites, we're looking at the ocean just using 5 colors. And you said it yourself, you didn't know what the Prussian blue is or all these different names. I kind of know them, but I know them by number, because ocean comes in so many different hues of blue and stuff. And currently we can't see that because we can just see 5 little colors. But what PACE is going to do is going to change the way we see the ocean. It's going to be able to see hyperspectral. So like if you're an artist or stuff, imagine seeing all the colors of blue and green and red and purple and everything. And this amount of data is going to change the way that we perceive the ocean. So information that we collected on Falcor is helping us develop new algorithm and test some technology that's going to push us forward as we launch in 2023.
Well, we're excited to hear more about that, Ivana. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. We are going to fly across the ocean to closer to where we're live streaming right now with previous Student Opportunities participant Antonella Willoughby, also a National Geographic explorer, who sailed with us about 8 months ago. Welcome, Antonella. We're so excited to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so really what excites you about ocean exploration, and what really connects you to the ocean?
I think there are so many things to be excited about. For me, I'm always excited by the potential for new discovery. It's kind of hard to put an ROV down in a place that no human eyes have ever seen and not see something really cool. So in like the ROV dives I've seen, I've been lucky to see Chimera, only filmed a few times, just tons of deep sea coral and just really amazing geological features, lava flows. I think it's just kind of piques our curiosity that all humans have of trying to, wanting to explore a place that we've never seen before.
And you have a really interesting background too, in that you're working on an engineering degree, but also working a lot with autonomous underwater robots. And it'd be interesting to hear from you. What's your perspective on the future of ocean exploration?
Yeah, I mean, I think technology is going to drive forward ocean exploration. I mean, really, technology has already been the driver of our ability to explore the ocean thus far. And I think we're going to continue to see just more and more innovative technologies focused on trying to get us to really inaccessible places. So we've seen how robotics has revolutionized space exploration, and I think we're going to see the same sort of revolution in the ocean space. With ROVs and AUVs and also maybe next generation vehicles. One example I like to give is ROVs are great because they're, really the brains are the humans, right? And so they're very intelligent because humans are intelligent. AUVs can navigate autonomously. They don't necessarily require, the human doesn't have eyes where the AUV is, but they're not actually that smart. So they'll just be going along, and if they see something interesting, they're just collecting data. They don't actually know that they've seen something really interesting, whether it's a new species or an interesting, hydrothermal vent. You don't know that until you get the AUV back and you get the data back. And so I think we're going to see this merger between different aspects of robotics and marine technology, like my field of computer science, where you're actually trying to endow these vehicles with higher level thinking. They can actually say, hey, that's really cool, I'm going to go and look at that. I'm going to take some more images or some, extra data, sample some extra things in this area. And then you'll be able to come back with these richer data sets where the vehicles have already said, like, hey, we've seen really cool things. Then you can maybe send the ROVs down to explore in more detail with the AUVs already given you. So I think we're going to see this merger of, higher level intelligence, not just dumb vehicles going out to complete a survey mission, but vehicles that are actually able to make decisions on the fly and say, hey, like, we made this discovery, now let's go explore it more.
Kind of like the cool things we're seeing right now. If only we had a vehicle that was just saying, hey, here this is. I could see Rob smiling, so I looked at the live stream to see what was happening. And Antonella, you have such an interesting way of looking at everything. What advice do you have for students that want to embark in studies similar to yourself?
It sounds really cliched, but I think people should follow their passions. I think, as we've already seen in this talk, a lot of different people are coming together with a lot of different backgrounds. You can certainly go and study a more traditional field like marine biology or oceanography and be a part of ocean exploration. But I think, fields are so interdisciplinary, and it really needs all kinds. It needs people to build the technology. It needs artists and communicators to communicate with the public. It needs the scientists to interpret all the data that we're getting back. And so I think, as cliched as it is, if you follow your passion and are interested in lots of different things, there's certainly a place for you in ocean exploration, even if you're not necessarily studying one of those really traditional fields.
That's amazing advice. Thank you so much, Antonella. So happy that you were able to be here with us. And I love the interdisciplinary of your work and all the work we're talking about today. I'd like to turn our attention now to our Falkor crew, who are really always working hard behind the scenes. I mean, it doesn't, these live streams don't work themselves just yet. We don't have robots doing that. And so it's really important for us to be able to acknowledge not only our crew here today, but Deborah Smith, who's behind the scenes running the show for us, as well as our ROV pilots and everybody on Falkor. I'm so happy to have with us now, we have Captain Peter Reynolds, our lead marine technician, Paul Duncan, and Second Officer Ty McManus to share a little bit more about life at sea. I'm so happy to have you guys all here. Now, all three of you have sailed on many expeditions in multiple ocean locations. What is most appealing about your work at sea?
Well, for me, I love to travel. I like going to exotic places and working with teams of scientists. So every cruise is really special and different. Ty?
For me, it has to be the people. Being 7 years deep here, you get to meet a wide diversity of scientists and technicians coming out to the ship. They are all passionate about the topic in itself, and being able to facilitate their endeavors to peel back what we don't know of the ocean floor is pretty rewarding. Originally, the seafaring vocation was reserved for people who misfits, runaways, and people who probably read the first chapter of Moby Dick. But now you have, as you've seen today with the live stream, a whole host of people with varying backgrounds coming out with a shared passion.
I'm going to second what Tig said. I mean, it's really about the people. Falkor is definitely the friendliest ship I've sailed on in all my years of supporting science at sea. The science that we do is very cool, and I always get very excited when we're seeing a potential new species during the dives.
That's always a really fun moment. Thank you. Ty, let's go back to you for a second. What has struck you most about the underwater environment that we've been seeing in Australia over the last couple of months? I feel like it's been just, one amazing thing after the next.
Yeah, I first saw the Subsea Australia about 15 years ago on the Great Barrier Reef, and I was struck in my early 20s with just a palette of colors that I had never experienced before, and a diversity of life that's, again, just not something that you see in the east coast of Canada. But over the past couple of months, Falkor has now circumnavigated Australia and gone to a series of different geographical areas. Myself, probably the most breathtaking thing would be the discovery of the siphonophore in the Ningaloo Canyon back in March. Just seeing the awe of the ROV coming up and the color coming off of it would be pretty inspiring.
We've also got the Nautilus that we've seen on this expedition. I mean, I've been going to sea supporting science for 30 years now. First time I've seen a live Nautilus. Absolutely incredible.
This has been like an expedition of Nautilus. I feel like we've seen a bunch, and even before the live stream started today, we had one pop up on camera, so we're hoping it might make another appearance. Let's go, Captain Pete, to you. I know this might be a loaded question, but do you have a favorite expedition? I mean, you've sailed on quite a few now.
Yeah, I started in 2017, but yeah, every cruise is fantastic, really. To pick one is quite difficult, but off the top of my head, adaptive robotics was a good one, working off Hydrate Ridge off the Oregon coast. Dr. Blair Thornton, there's some really cool AUV technology which up the seabed and fine resolution. Another one was with Mandy Joy in the Gulf of California. And Microbial Mysteries, are some really stunning imagery that we saw on that cruise from Morro v Sebastian. But yeah, my favourite maybe would be my first one, which underwater fire, working near the volcanoes near Tonga. That was really special. It's the first time on board Falcor, working with such an amazing team on board. So
those are all really memorable ones. Let's go to you, Paul. Have you spent so many years on Falcor now? What changes have you observed over time in looking at these ocean environments that we've sailed in?
I don't know if I've seen an increase in it, but my awareness of ocean plastics certainly increased after a cruise in 2013. The first time that Falcor sailed from the US mainland to Hawaii, we had a single scientist, Jenny Brandon, on board, and her specialty was ocean plastics. And she gave us a seminar at sea, during which she described all the different types of plastics we would see. After the seminar, I went up to the marine mammal observation deck and just watched the sea going past the ship for about half an hour. Sad to say that within that half an hour, I'd seen everything that she said we would see, from discarded fishing gear, polystyrene, bottles, everything. So, an eye-opener.
Definitely. And that seems to be a theme here with everyone that's talked today. Ty, you get to experience the ocean all the time with your career and what you do for a living. How do you connect people or share your experiences with those who don't live by the ocean?
I try and generate a bit of empathy. I grew up by the ocean and very much grew up at sea. However, I spent a fair bit of time in landlocked areas, and be it either talking to a farmer by a grain elevator or talking to a courier in an office elevator, you sometimes get quizzical looks about, oh, you work on the ocean. But I try and convey to them what a meteorological professor of mine at the Nautical College once told me, that there are really just two oceans. There's an ocean of water and an ocean of air, and those two are interconnected, and we're dependent on that interconnection. So every morsel of food that we have, every glass of water that we drink, and breath that we take, the molecules of that at some place and some time had to pass through the sea. I usually would say to them that, I get a little bit confused whether I saw it on a meme my little sister told me, or it was Carl Sagan. That, right now we were born in an era in which the margins of the charts had already been drawn in, and yet we were born before we could explore the outer reaches of the stars. But thanks to Falcor and the work that we get to do here in the Coral Sea, we're at least able to shade in a little bit between the margins.
Well, the data that we log with our multibeam echo sounders, all that goes to help increase the amount of data available for the Seabed 2030 project, which is trying to basically get a full multibeam map of the planet by 2030. It's going to be a tough job to help.
An important job. So, Paul, you spend a lot of time doing that as your job, mapping and being out at sea. What's it like to be out at sea for half the time?
Well, it's like having two separate homes with two circles of friends, very different things going on in each of them. It's a probably healthier lifestyle on Falcor in some ways, because I spend more time in the gym, and the food may be healthier in some ways. And yeah, it's a wonderful place to work. It's a really friendly people, and I love it.
That's great. Captain Pete, I want to ask you a similar question I asked Antonella earlier, and that was about advice for younger followers who want a career at sea. We talked about different paths, and you obviously have a different path than a scientist or an artist. What advice do you have for our younger followers out there?
Well, there's plenty of varied, exciting careers to choose from at sea, really, especially on a scientific research ship. So, yeah, this can vary from working in the deck department as an officer or a deckhand to the ROV pilots, marine technicians, engineering officers, and fitters. And also, yeah, we can work in the interior hotel department of the ship as well. So basically, find where your passion lies and work hard, and you won't be disappointed.
That's solid advice. Thank you so much, all of you. I know you're busy working to get this live stream and keep Falkor running, so it's really lovely that you were able to connect with us today. Last but certainly not least, I want to go to the man of the hour, Dr. Robin Beeman, who is the current chief scientist on our first completely remote science party expedition. Robin, you've been just, inspirational listening to as we've done dives over the last month. What is the significance of these dives been for you and bringing the ocean into people's living room?
Yes, thanks, Carly, for having me on for World Oceans Day. Yeah, the significance really is that we've been able to keep the science going. As everyone's aware, the COVID crisis has really shut down a lot of the economy and business, and also in science. Field trips were basically cancelled all around the world, and the fact that we've been able to manage to keep an expedition going with Schmidt Ocean Institute and the research vessel Falkor in the Coral Sea here is highly significant. It's probably one of the few large research vessels that are actually operating in the world today, and the best example, here we are doing a live video feed from out in the Coral Sea. So, highly significant. I guess the point is that we've been able to keep the science going irrespective of the difficulties that we're all working under. And Robin, what's really striking to me is a lot of these dives have been on areas that have never been seen before by human eyes or an ROV. Why is this, and why is that important? Okay, so just some context. This current expedition is out in the Coral Sea Marine Park. It's one of a network of reserves here in Australia that we declared several years ago. And while we understand quite well the biodiversity of the corals and the fish themselves in the shallow coral reefs, it was the deeper parts that were very unmapped and very unexplored. And that would have remained that way for a very long time, I would think, until we had this opportunity with the Falkor. And so with the opportunity to run an expedition out there for about a month, it seemed obvious that we could get the Falkor out there and look into this environment. It had no modern multi-beam depth data maps in the area. We knew very little about the deeper parts beyond, say, scuba diving depths. And so it was this really huge unknown about what is Australia's largest marine reserve, the Coral Sea Marine Park. And so this last month has been so exciting. The maps that we've been creating with the multi-beam sonar systems, the ROV dives, I think we're up to about 12 or 13 ROV dives down to about 1.6 kilometres in places, has been astounding. It's a complete step change to what we knew before. And so it's very, very important, not only from the fact that we can actually have an expedition still continuing remotely during the COVID crisis where all the science crew are on shore, but just what is being revealed in this part of Australia's marine estate, a frontier marine estate that we never knew before. So you mentioned this is a protected area, the Coral Sea Marine Park. The collection of data from this expedition, how will that impact conservation and continued protection of this area? Yes, so we look at the Coral Sea as this vast area. It's about 1 million square kilometres around the boundary, but scattered in amongst it are a whole series of fairly large reefs and atolls. You can think of them as seamounts, just big oceanic dots out there. And like I say, that we actually have quite a good understanding of the shallow water environments, the coral reefs, the fish, and the biodiversity of the different coral systems there. But once you get below those scuba diving depths, we really had no idea. Now, what we can do now is we can actually take all this ROV footage, and we've deliberately chosen these long vertical transects from the deeper plateau, which is around about 1 kilometre deep, right up into the shallows. And we've been doing a whole series of these different transects, and we can get that depth zonation, so we can actually get some understanding of the different trends, how we change from the cold water environment through this thermocline around 400, 500 metres up into those shallower waters, into the mesophotic zone, the mesophotic being this sort of twilight zone just below that photic depth. That was the area that we didn't know much about. But now we can actually say, yes, we do know where the corals, the actual shallow water corals, their lower depth limit. So for instance, yesterday's dive, we got the deepest record of a zooxanthellate coral in Australia, and that was around 150 metres. Now, we didn't know that before, but we've got new species of fish that we didn't know existed before, expanded home ranges. What's been really interesting is how we've been able to bring in lots and lots of experts from all around the world to help us understand better the biodiversity, taxonomic fish IDs. I certainly wouldn't be able to do myself. And so I guess one of the other significant pieces here is that we've been able to bring lots of other experts in through this remote communications. Looking forward in the future, we'll be able to do more taxonomic analysis from the vision, relate that to the geological maps that have been created by the multi-beam. Ultimately, it all goes into feeding how the managers, in this case Parks Australia, can better manage the marine park, better understand, I guess, how human impacts might relate to the biodiversity and the different environments that we've mapped over the last month. And it's just been really an amazing month, actually.
Well, I admit I have gotten sucked in more than once into some of those conversations online when there's been, new species popping up. And Rob, it's been absolutely lovely to talk with you and to hear your insights as the live streams have continued. So if people want to learn more, they should definitely check out the Visioning Coral Sea Marine Park Expedition. Not only thank you to you, but all of our guests today. I encourage everyone joining us to take some time to not only know, but understand our ocean, not just on World Ocean Day, or World Ocean Month, but all year long. This year has been a prominent reminder that health and environment are deeply connected, and justice is a thread of this that improves our connection to both of those. We stand with those making the world a better place, and we want to end our connection today with a moment of reflection and to recognize the majestic beauty that the ocean holds, and not just what we see every day, but what lies in the deeper waters that we're seeing here. It's an important reminder to look under the surface. Thank you to all of our guests who have taken time to share with us today, and to those behind the scenes, again, working to make this happen. Please don't forget to check the Schmidt Ocean Institute World Ocean Month calendar for more events, and visit us at schmidtocean.org to watch our new videos in support of the UN Decade for Ocean Sciences for Sustainable Development, as well as our short highlight videos looking at why we explore. Thank you to those of you who tuned in today, and now we will hope you will get out there and enjoy our ocean planet. Thank you.